What if I told you that your life was a video game? That you are living inside of a massive multiplayer online role-playing game? Maybe I can't call it online because we don't know it exists outside of our reality, but it is some kind of massive multiplayer experience. Now, I'm not saying I actually believe all of this is true, but these are just some ideas that I find particularly interesting, especially when we see Elon Musk talk about us living in a simulation. There's a lot of high-profile Trump supporters who talk about living in a simulation. And the reason some people have for believing we live in a simulation is that, well, a lot of weird things seem to happen. They believe that sometimes coincidences are too great, and clearly we must be in some fabricated reality meant to make things interesting. One of the things that Elon Musk says is that if you were going to create a simulation, you wouldn't make it boring, would you? And whatever exists outside of that simulation is probably boring. But first, to understand why I'm going to explain to you some philosophical concepts and explain to you why I believe beyond simulism or simulation theory, we may actually be in an MMORPG surrounded by non-player characters. First, let's read about simulation. This is a story from space.com. We're probably living in a simulation, Elon Musk says. Elon Musk thinks we're all probably trapped in a matrix like pseudo-existence. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, so any civilizations that may have arisen throughout the cosmos have had loads and loads of time to hone their technology know-how. The SpaceX founder and CEO explained early this morning, or yesterday morning, wide-ranging and very entertaining experience on a Joe Rogan podcast. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will be indistinguishable from reality, or civilization will end. One of those two things will occur, Musk said. Therefore, we are most likely in a simulation because we exist. I think most likely, this is just about probability. There are many, many simulations, he added. You might as well call them reality, or you could call them the multiverse. Now, I think this needs to be explained better because Elon Musk didn't do too good of a job. One of the arguments as to why it is more likely we exist in a simulation as opposed to base reality is that we've only been around for about, I think maybe 30 or 40,000 years. In the past 100 years, our technology has dramatically exploded. Our knowledge, our understanding of the universe has gone crazy. Look at video games in the past 30 years. Compare Super Mario Brothers to Grand Theft Auto 5, or not even that. Look at some of these newer games, like look at Detroit Become Human. These are just becoming simulated realities. You can play a game like Skyrim and walk around and engage in very interesting ways, and it's only been a couple decades. Imagine where we'll be several decades from now, especially with, I'm pretty sure, Elon Musk working on computer-brain interfacing technology. If we can accomplish that, and I believe we can in a matter of time, we will be able to directly link our consciousness, our brain, into our own simulations. Now here's the thing. Because we know how quickly we advance, and because we know we are able to create this kind of technology, it stands to reason that in any base reality, given a long enough period of time, because the universe is billions upon billions of years old, and it only takes several decades to achieve this technology, it is likely the technology has been attained before. It is more likely. So then, when you look at that logic, it stands to reason it is more likely that a civilization created technology, we are inside of it, than it is that we exist in base reality. Now, of course, it's not necessarily something that we can prove for sure. But, as Elon Musk says, outside of the simulation is going to be boring. Do you play video games that have nothing happen? No, you play video games where things happen and they're fun and exciting. Although within video games there are big gaps in time frame, like in some games screen will flash and it'll say 3 weeks later, or we assume that a lot of circumstances within video games time is compressed. But we make video games because they are interesting, because they're not boring and we want to entertain ourselves. So it stands to reason if there is a base reality, it probably is boring, and you are existing in some kind of more fun reality. The substrate on which these simulations are running, whatever it may be, is probably quite boring, as I explained. Why would you make a simulation that's boring? You'd make a simulation that's way more interesting than base reality, citing the video games and movies that humanity makes, which are distillations of what is interesting about life. Now, let's talk, so here's simulism, okay? Basically, I explained it, but let's talk about multiplayer RPG theory within simulism. And the reason why I would say this dominates, there's three potential, three parent trees of simulation as a game theory. The first being, in a video game like Fallout or Skyrim, if you're familiar, these are single-player games. The only character that exists in that game that's alive is you. There's a character on the screen. You can control that person. You think for that person. You can make that person do whatever you want. That person is your avatar. Within a game like Skyrim or Fallout, there are other characters that are controlled by no one and are automated. These are called non-player characters. And in a single-player game, there is only one player, single player. Maybe if you're not familiar with Fallout or Skyrim, I'll use a more archaic example of, say, Mario Brothers for Nintendo. In Mario Brothers, there's a little Mario on the screen, and when you run and jump and press buttons, Mario responds as you command. But there are also other characters on the screen that are just controlled by the computer, and you know there is no human being controlling any of those players. When you go to the end of a dungeon and you meet the princess, her character looks very similar to yours, but there is no one controlling that character. And the same is true for a larger game like Fallout or Skyrim. Yes, there might be someone who runs around and throws rocks at you, but come on, we know there's no secret, online interaction where a human being is controlling that person. That person has no soul, as it were. And this is where I get to a conspiracy theory that has arisen as of late. It's actually on Reddit r/conspiracy. They ask, what do you guys think about the NPC theory and soulless humans? I'm going to explain this, and then I'm going to explain to you the other parent trees within video game simulation theory. So there's a theory going around based off a study that only like 25% of the population has an inner voice. What this says to people is, people are talking right now on the internet. Based on a study, they believe around 75% of human beings on this planet are non-player characters, the same as a character in a game like Fallout. And so let me pull up this actual study. When I saw this, it actually shocked me. I don't know if you know what an inner voice means, but let's explain this because I certainly experience an inner voice 24/7. Inner speech is frequent, but not for everyone. Your pristine inner experience is whatever is directly in your experience before the footlights of your consciousness, as William James would say at some moment. My previous blogs have observed that some people, women with bulimia nervosa, for example, have frequent multiple simultaneous experiences, but that multiple experience is not frequent in the general population. If not multiple experiences, what are the frequently occurring phenomenon of pristine experience? Okay, this guy's getting a little complicated, but let's just go here. Consider inner speech. Subject experience themselves as innerly talking to themselves in 26% of all samples. But there were large individual differences. Some subjects never experienced inner speech. Other subjects experienced inner speech in as many as 75% of their samples. The median percentage across subjects was 20%. So what does this mean? Well, it's actually rather complicated. If you are someone who has an inner voice, there's a consciousness within you that is talking, and you understand this as a language, then it is considered by some people that you are a player character. However, this could actually mean that you're a non-player character. Because think about this. If you exist in a reality where you are the NPC, you have no means of exiting that reality, in which case it is much more likely that if you experience inner thought, you are a non-player character. I don't know if you're following me through all this. But there's also the theory, or the idea, that if we are linking our brains into the computer, then we experience reality as though we exist within it, and though technically we can remove ourselves, we're actively playing the game, so we don't. So this is the general idea. The general idea is that because only a small percentage of people actually think a voice in their head, they have an inner voice, people are saying that those who don't have no soul, and they are the actual non-player characters, which would mean if we lived in a simulation and only around 20% of all people were active players, we are in a multiplayer online game of some sort, or online simulation. Maybe it's like Second Life or some kind of multiplayer Sims, who knows. But there is another possibility that inner speech has, so the three parent trees. Maybe inner speech has nothing to do with whether or not you're a non-playing character. Let's talk about simulation theory's three parent trees now that I've explained this. One is that you are the only player and no one is conscious at all. You might assume they are. They might claim to be. But these are non-player characters that look and appear just like you and interact only to facilitate your existence within the simulation. The second theory is the massive multiplayer theory, and I believe this is, if any of these are to be true, this is the more likely to be true because it's kind of it's more a middle ground, right? Not necessarily more true, but it's a middle ground. And that's that some people are alive and some people are non-player characters, which would mean we're in some kind of multiplayer game. But the third is that everyone is alive. Whether or not we're in a simulation, we're all even, we're all equal, we're on the same playing field. I have to wonder then, if it's possible that we exist in a reality where you are the only actual player, to what extent do you have control over the universe? There are people who are very spiritual who believe in something called the secret, where if you visualize things, they will happen. However, because there's many people who do believe this, maybe it's more likely we're in an MMORPG. Now, I want to talk about another concept. We'll skip over this, I have this pulled up. But we need to talk about something called philosophical zombies. And for most people who play video games, we imagine non-player characters, the easiest way to explain this, but this concept existed before video games existed. A zombie in philosophy are creatures designed to illuminate problems about consciousness and its relation to the physical world. Unlike those in films or witchcraft, they are exactly like us in all physical respects, but without conscious experiences. By definition, there is nothing it is like to be a zombie. Yet zombies behave just like us, and some even spend a lot of time discussing consciousness. And thus we get to the next step in the idea of a simulation. When you think about the universe being a simulation and everything that comes with it, you imagine that all people are equal, and we're all just little bits within the simulation, and none of us have an existence outside of the simulation within base reality. However, it's possible that most people are just philosophical zombies or non-player characters, and the rest of us are maybe playing games. Now, people politically, as it goes for this conspiracy, are arguing that's why there are so many people who are sheep. Those who are leaders are players, who are actively playing the game and trying to shape something unique, and those who just follow the trends and do what they're told are the non-player characters who exist only to facilitate existence for everyone else. These are all interesting ideas, and I would encourage you all to read more and explore this idea, because there is a logic that states it is more likely we are in a simulation than we aren't. And if that's true, I at least believe, based on my research and my understanding of these ideas, it is much more likely we are in a reality where only some people are actively conscious and playing the game. While these ideas are fun, that's all they are. Thought experiments, philosophical ideas, things that are really hard to prove, but there are scientists working on trying to prove whether or not we're living in some kind of hologram, how that hologram could exist, whether or not reality is a simulation. And I guess I have to say, if it ever came to a point where we could design a video game where the video game characters knew they were in a video game, that would be really crazy. And I also want to add one last thought about what I'm really excited for in terms of artificial intelligence and simulation and things that affect. Imagine in the next 30 years, we are able to create a video game that is perfect, a perfect replica of reality, to the point where you could go into a game like GTA, do something very strange, and actually have one of the non-playing characters respond to your unique behavior in such a way that they appear to be conscious. Maybe, in a game like GTA, all of the characters have preset lines. They can only say certain things because someone's voice is recorded and it plays. But as we improve with artificial intelligence, with things like Siri and Alexa being able to respond to us in various ways, even though it is programmed, perhaps we will come to a point where video game characters behave no differently than a human being. And you can go into a video game, do something like throw a rock at someone's head, and that person will be like, why did that dude just throw a rock at my head? Something totally unique and out of the ordinary generated by the artificial intelligence. How cool would that be? But for the time being, I'm going to get out of here. And maybe we can discuss philosophy and simulism again in the future. But comment below and let me know what you think, and we'll have a conversation about the secrets of the universe. But other than that, stay tuned. I've got more videos coming up in like 10 or 15 seconds.